Anytime Bitcoin gets a little move to the upside or to the downside, the alert systems in my mind, they go off. They say, be careful. In this video, I want to talk about why to be careful with this 6-hour move on Bitcoin. But more importantly, I want to discuss why, I know it's a small move, but why it's so important. Every time this move around the $17,000 area happens, Bitcoin grappling with that area, it is extremely important for me on a multi-year macro perspective. And I want to explain why that is. So first off, I just want to talk about, well, the move that we got back above 17,000 right now that's happening. If the daily closes above this, that's a question yet to be answered. But the reason why it's happening is very simple. S&P 500, let me zoom in here a little bit and also just clear the chart a little bit. S&P 500 putting in a green daily candle. But this is the first reason why we should all be very careful. This green candle is based off of new job data, unemployment data that came out. And Thursday's jump came after Labor Department figures showed that filings for unemployment insurance rose slightly last week, but were in line with estimates. So everybody kind of anticipating that there's going to be a 0.5% rate hike next week. And if data comes in that says, hey, that's more and more likely, like the data today, then markets are reacting in a positive way because of that. But what I want to note, and then we're going to look at the Bitcoin chart and we're going to look at the macro and how the micro and macro charts are colliding and why we all need to be extremely careful right now. I want to discuss this. We've gotten in this bear market on the S&P 500 a nice reflection of equity markets. We've gotten these lower high resistance area, these green Fibonacci retracements on kind of the midterm. It's been lower highs throughout the entire bear market. Now, I want you to notice, most recently when we've been tracking this lower high resistance, it has played out so far. But in these previous lower highs, notice something. We hit resistance, kind of come down a little bit, and then we come back up and we test moving averages, namely this green one, the 20-day moving average. Happened there, and then you can see here, hitting resistance, kind of coming back down, testing the 20-day moving average once, twice, and then here we are again right now as I do this video, and you can see S&P 500 coming to the lower high Fibonacci, coming back down, and just making a little bit of a move, and it's still below the 20-day moving average. So it hasn't even specifically touched the 20-day moving average like we've seen, but we see these little moves to the upside kind of as equity markets continue to trickle down with shorter term lower lows and lower highs. Now, each time that's happening, Bitcoin kind of reacting along with markets. And really, Bitcoin and crypto markets as a whole just faking everybody out all the time, especially in this bear market. You see like a 1% or 2% short-term candle and just everybody kind of getting excited. But that's why we should just not be excited when we see like these moves. There's no bullish confirmation happening right now. And actually on the flip side, what is happening is once again, Bitcoin just grappling with this yellow line. And you see it's happened time and time again for Bitcoin. That yellow line, everybody, and I can't stress this enough. Out of all my videos, even as it pertains to the altcoin market and cryptos as a whole, the macro 786 line, this yellow line that I just harp about and go on and on about, is so crucial to me. And it has been the most helpful thing in my crypto journey over the years. And so now that we're in this macro environment and Bitcoin is kind of retraced below the 786 line. And if you haven't seen my videos, this is a Fibonacci retracement. Bitcoin has bottomed below in previous bear markets, right? 2018 bear market, and then here's 2015 back here. Bitcoin has bottomed below it, but you notice Bitcoin kind of even in this bear cycle in 2015, you can see Bitcoin grappling with the yellow line then, the 786 line then, barely staying above and falling back below before finally escaping in October 2015. So we're kind of in a similar environment where Bitcoin is below that area, and I think it is to be anticipated that Bitcoin will grapple and struggle and really kind of fake us out in that area. And it's kind of what's happening right now. And you can even see on the 6-hour chart as I do this video, Bitcoin seeing some resistance. I want to throw this out there. In the short term, maybe even the midterm, there's definitely play to the upside. And it's especially if this narrative shift starts happening. maybe not so much from an economy perspective. And, there's going to be a lot of probably 2023 recession, negative headline talk. But from a market perspective, we might start seeing the market begin shifting prior to the economy kind of climbing out of the woods, so to speak. So if the market begins shifting, we're going to start seeing a slow shift for Bitcoin as well. But to the upside for the shorter term, to the midterm, I just want to talk about the scenario briefly in case that the 786 resistance doesn't hold. So in the short term, we're kind of in this higher high, higher low pattern for Bitcoin. To the upside, it's around a 3 to 4% move to around $17,800 or so. If you go to the daily chart, it's an important area because remember, we're still waiting and anticipating a potential pullback to the one of the trend lines from that triangle that we've been tracking for a long time. So a pullback would look like, boom, right to this trend line, right? So if that pullback were to take effect, the biggest piece of resistance along the way, not just the trend line itself, is the 50-day moving average. And notice where the 50-day moving average is right now. It's around $18,000. So if on the 6-hour chart, we have this kind of this move to the upside that's in play for Bitcoin, which is around 17,800. Two, if you go forward a couple days or so, you can see 4 days ahead, we're around $18,000. If that's the target in the short term for Bitcoin, you can see that the resistance on this chart at the 50-day moving average is right there. So for me, there's this play where Bitcoin actually does break above that 786 line, but we're hitting this resistance kind of maybe in between the 50-day and this lower trend line that is extending out from that pattern. So that's the biggest area of resistance I'm watching. Now, if equity markets and markets as a whole react positively to maybe a 0.5% rate hike next week, it's a big day, then what I'd be anticipating is the potential for a slow turnaround of these markets. So if we're in this bullish environment that we haven't really seen as much lately, the next move for Bitcoin I'd be anticipating would definitely be on the weekly, and it would require Bitcoin to break through that trend line and test the macro moving average resistance. It's a 20-week moving average. It's just below $20,000. So a move to just below $20,000 is in play for Bitcoin, but a lot has to happen for within equity markets for that to happen. But it's around a 15% move or so for Bitcoin. So that's what I'd be watching for. But all the while, everybody, I just sit here and I tell myself, listen, be careful. There's going to be these weekly narrative shifts depending on what the headlines are saying, what new data is coming out. But I think from a macro perspective, I think things are really slowly starting to turn around. And if anything's going to turn around first, I think it's going to be markets, not so much the economy and the headlines that we see about recession. I think it will be markets. So there's definitely play to the upside. But for me, I want to continue being careful, especially as we kind of hang around the 786 line. And lastly, there hasn't been a huge dip below the 786 line. We've only fallen around 10%, and maybe that would be the bottom. Maybe it ends up being the bottom, but the average of the previous bear markets would say we have up to 35% below that line to bottom out. So I'm anticipating more downside, but I'm obviously being very realistic with the fact that, hey, we could rally. There could be some shorter term good news, not to mention that we have new CPI data coming December 13th for November. What is that going to look like? How's that going to move markets, right? That's 5 days away. So case for bullish move to the upside, but I'm just being very cautious right now. Nothing to be excited about. No bullish confirmations, as at least how I see things. And this is how I see things. This is how I see the chart. So let me know your thoughts, everybody. We'll continue tracking Bitcoin, especially as it grapples this crazy macro area on the short term. It is one of the most exciting things happening right now on all of these charts. And I hope you're doing well out there. Hit the subscribe and like. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.